everybody. Welcome, welcome. It is Cello Tip Tuesday live time. Yeah. How are we all doing today? I hope you all are doing awesome. And today is our day to do cello tips, tricks. Chelly is here. We all know he's the real star. He's the real reason y'all are here and came. But yes, please submit your questions in the chat. Any questions about the music industry, anything about auditions, social media. Chelly's here to demonstrate for you guys if you need some assistance in the practice room. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I see some people I recognize on Instagram. Hello, Frank. Hello. And for those of you here on YouTube, welcome as well. So yes, we are live both on Instagram and YouTube. So who's got some questions? Anything you would like me to chat about? Of course, you will always have the chance to hear some music, undoubtedly. But I would love to also be here and talk about music with y'all. Hello. Yes, I love the hearts on Instagram. I love it. I wish YouTube, you could emote on YouTube. Come on, YouTube. Give us some emotes in the pretty visual. Hello, everyone. Hello in the chat. Please submit your questions for Chelly and I. Yes, that was Chelly welcoming you all. I see Frank has put something in the chat. Oh dear, Frank has a physicality question. Been having hard tendonitis since Thursday. Is it smarter to rest or stretch, push through it? Also, your thoughts on scores studying or practicing away from the instrument. Frank, you just brought up a lot of incredible points and really great things to talk about. Chelly is not offended that we're going to talk about practicing without you. I'm sorry. You'll have plenty of chances. Also, so sorry for all of you, Frank, and those of you who are experiencing physicality issues. You know, it's something that happens a lot more often than people would imagine. You know, tendonitis is frequently an issue in our arms and our hands because these tendons are pretty small. You know, they're thin, they can be fragile and easily overworked. Now, granted, I have to do my little disclaimer for you dolls. When we talk about physicality, I just have to say it as a way to ensure we're all on the same page. I am not a medical professional or physical therapist for musicians. You know, I don't have that kind of certification, so I am going to be speaking solely from experience. If you are having consistent discomfort or pain, seek out a medical professional or physical trainer. So that is something, a huge tip. I can't say that enough. You know, you are protecting your body, advocating for your body. So if you have persistent discomfort, you should seek professional help. And I would say resting is the best way to begin, is by resting, giving our body a chance to recover, especially if you are experiencing pain doing everyday tasks. That's a big sign that you really need to take a step back. There's discomfort when we are specifically playing the instrument, and that means we got to reevaluate our technique. But if it's getting to the point where opening a jar or holding something and you're feeling that same pain in everyday tasks, you really got to take a step back from the instrument and make sure you are resting. If it's slight discomfort and you're not too bothered when you play, you should still up your breaks. So, adding 2 or 3, even 4 extra rest periods over the course of your practicing day and making your practicing segments shorter is very important. And Frank also brought up an amazing practice technique of score studying. On my YouTube channel, I actually have a vlog on score studying for those of you dolls who are very interested and want more than what I'm going to summarize in the next 2 minutes. Check that out on my YouTube channel. And for score studying, find a few professional recordings of your piece. Both, let's say we're doing a concerto, find a recording with the orchestra, and if you can, find a recording someone playing with piano. And that's something that isn't done a lot. A lot of top-notch professional players will record with the orchestra because, of course, you want to record with an orchestra. It's amazing. But it can be different to sit down and play with a piano, even if you have the orchestra part in your ear. So I also recommend trying to find a recording where you see someone performing with a piano. And listening to both, I usually have the score in front of me and my part. And I write cues, because when you go to your first rehearsal with a pianist and you're still getting familiar with the piece, if you write a little cue before an entrance, that's going to help you out so much. Of course, count your rests, but having extra knowledge will really help you out for those initial rehearsals. And then as you get more familiar with the piece, you won't need all of those cues necessarily. So marking up your part, even I've written stuff like low eighth notes, 3 beats or something, just so I know to listen. And that's really helpful because if you're counting 10 bars of rest and you're thinking, was that bar 8 or 9? Was that oh no. But you have an extra tool to help you. So I often write cues before my major entrances, write when you're having a conversation with the piano or orchestra versus this is a solo cello flaunting moment where the cello gets to sing and be the superstar. That's going to require a different style of playing. So are you having a conversation with the piano / orchestra? Does the orchestra have the melody and your accompaniment? So there is so much you can learn through listening to recordings with the score in front of you. If you want to get a general feel for the piece and the atmosphere, you can listen once without the score, but I strongly encourage most of your listenings to be done with the score. And I hope that helps. Score studying is something that is very helpful. It's a very useful tool. And another great thing is, even though you can't practice with the instrument right at this moment, you can make notes in your score saying, this section, practice for rhythm. Let's say you have a part where you have rhythmic back and forth with the piano. A new piece I'm working on has a lot of that throughout. So you can also make a practice plan based off of your score studying and really be efficient in getting to the challenging parts. So Frank, that was a lot. I hope that covered it. I hope that helped. So let's see what else can I help you dolls with? I see cellists in the chat. Yay. Yay. Oh, thank you, Frank. Frank included my score studying video on Instagram. I'll also include it here in the YouTube notes for those of you who watch later on YouTube. And do we have any other questions about score studying or playing health? Or something else completely random, like you really want to nail that G major scale, or do you have a specific piece you're working on you want some tips for? Shelly wants to thank Frank for his beautiful question in opening the live stream. So this goes out to Frank. On an F for Frank, of course. Why not? Of course you gotta. All right, let's see what else. Ooh, Frank, you are nailing it with these awesome questions. Etude practicing versus application of excerpts. You might need to clarify on that one a little bit, Frank. Do you mean practicing etudes as a way to prepare for excerpts, or warming up with etudes versus excerpts? I would love to answer your question. I just want to make sure I do it in a very efficient way that gets right to the point. Okay, excellent. I just had to fix my image on YouTube. Let me see. Well, I can start talking about the value of etudes and excerpts. Oh, practicing an etude as a way to prepare, or practicing the repertoire. That's a great question, Frank. So I believe what Frank is asking is, what's a strategic way to practice excerpts related to repertoire, which I think is a great practicing strategy. So there are a couple ways you can approach this. They're kind of like opposites in a way. I think if you're practicing a piece with a certain type of technique that you find difficult or challenging, you can complement it with an etude that also practices that technique. So let me think of an example. You know, if you're playing any sort of piece that has a lot of spiccato, something where you're bouncing a lot with the bow, you might want to pick an etude that uses that same technique. And a great one for a bouncing bow is a popper. Of course, I'm not super warmed up, but as you can see, that has spiccato throughout the whole thing. And that one is number, let me see what number that is. Da, 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 da. In case you guys heard that and thought, man, that's a really cool etude. I want to look at that in my popper book. Yes, so that one is number 27, which has a lot of spiccato. And so, yeah, go through your popper book. And a great thing to ask yourself with any etude is what technical skills are we working here in this etude? Even before you try reading through it or practicing slowly, you know, most etudes have a mission behind them, and you know, that's going to help you practice it more efficiently is if you ask, what technique is this trying to work on? And it's usually more than one technique. Excuse me. On the flip side, something completely different. Sometimes what I like to do is practice an etude that has no relation. And let's say, you know, this is a great example. Right now, a lot of the ensembles I play with, oftentimes the cello has bass lines, rhythmic lines, stuff down low. Of course, I get solos and melody occasionally, but a lot of what I've been playing recently has been very rhythmic, lower strings, and so I have to have crisp articulation and things like that. And also, you know, rhythmic accuracy is very important. So I might pick an etude that is very melodic and focuses a lot on the A and D string, so I can practice tone quality, projection, different colors when I'm playing a melody. So if I'm performing a lot of a few different types, I'm not just saying I'm playing the same thing over and over, but if you're playing and performing with a lot of similar techniques, then practice a totally different set of techniques so you can have all of these tools fresh and in your tool going on here. There we go. Okay. So yes, a lot of times, especially when you're in a conservatory, a teacher will assign you an etude to prepare you for a concerto or to help you exercise a technique you might need more help on. So I hope that helped. You know, I remember when I was in college, I often did some sort of scale or arpeggio cycle. Then I would warm up with an etude, and then I would play my concertos and sonatas. And that's kind of how I structured my practice flow every single day. Like, the scales prepare you for the etude, which prepare you for the piece, and then you drill out the piece and woodshed on the piece and do a lot of good, honest work. So yeah, I hope that's helpful in terms of you can use etudes as a tool for your current repertoire, or you can use it if you're playing, like, you guys know my favorite concerto is Shostakovich. Sorry, wow. And that's very short bows, crisp bows, faster rhythm, down by the frog. You got to be weighted and heavy in there. So for that, you know, that's a very specific type of group of techniques. And you know, we have some differences. The big melody on the A string. That one, you got to be good at projecting and having a concentrated bow. But again, it's concentrated, as is the that's also concentrated. It's a very concentrated sound. So I might pick a popper etude that is flowy and uses longer bows. I wish I had more pauper etudes memorized off the top of my head. You dolls know what I mean? Oh, number 7 is so pretty. That one, that's a great one for long lyrical bow control. So maybe I'll play that one next to Shostakovich. And also, who's to say you can't be working on 2 etudes? You can work on 2 etudes at the same time. They're not that long. So I hope that helps. I just went on a big rampage about etudes. I saw another comment. Oh, I love this. Someone on Instagram wrote, I use this pic of SpongeBob assembling a Krabby Patty to list the way I put together. I would love to know, so if you use a picture of a Krabby Patty to replicate your practice time, does that mean you start and end with the same thing, like bread? Right? Because a Krabby Patty has the bun, the 2 pieces of bread. So does that mean you start and end in the same way? I'd be very curious to know. Another question, in what situation would you recommend listening words? Trust me, I'm a professional. In what situation would you recommend listening, referencing an existent for recording when approaching new rep versus not listening at all to previous recordings? Wow, that's a big conversation. A lot of teachers have specific opinions on this, where often we get more influenced by recordings than what's written on the page. Because, and I'm just thinking of some famous examples, I'm not critiquing these in any sense, but you know, Jacqueline Dupre's Elgar Concerto is the Elgar recording most cellists listen to, and you have to always be aware of what the, you always have to be aware of what the composer intended. Sorry, I'm going to summarize that one more time for people on YouTube. We're talking about if getting too absorbed in other people's recordings when you're learning a new piece. Because, and I'm racking my brain for one, and I can't think of it right now, that sometimes because one famous cellist played a piece this way, even though it doesn't follow the ink, a lot of cellists replicate it. And I've been in lessons where I'll do this big ritardando, I'll start slowing down, and my teacher will go, why are you doing that? Are you doing that because you listen to X cellist's recording? There's nothing in the part to say you should slow down, so why are you slowing down? And it's a very valid point that, you know, maybe it's kind of like the game of telephone, right? Where one person says something, and as it gets passed on, it might slightly change. The message might slightly change. That can happen with old concertos. So, do you listen or do you not listen? I would say listen if you are incredibly unfamiliar with the piece. Excuse me. And Frank just mentioned a great example, Bach. Do you know how many interpretations there are of cello players playing Bach? There are so many. I mean, every performance of Bach is so unique and different. And this also goes into the argument of interpretation. But again, I think it's very important to be familiar with the foundational elements of the piece. And again, this ties into score studying. How does the cello interact with the orchestra? And I think you really get a sense of that by listening to recordings. Now, to prevent from, you don't want to replicate another artist's work. You don't want to do that. This is your chance to make your own unique interpretation of the Elgar Concerto, of Dvorak Concerto. It's your chance to make a statement and make your own version of the piece. And I think that's amazing, rather than saying, I got to sound like this person. Why sound like someone else when they have an incredible legacy and recordings and a concert series? Sound like you. Sound like yourself, I think. And I'm so guilty of that, because we're all enamored by these great legends and their recordings. And we aspire to that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you also have to value your unique viewpoint. And, you know, I'm speaking as someone who went to school for so many years, and I was not in touch with that side of myself for a long time. And it can be hard to tap into, absolutely. So, what I will say, to not get stuck on one interpretation, listen to at least 3 different recordings. 3 different recordings, at least. And I was guilty of this myself in college, because I always had this sense in college that I never had enough time to get everything done. You know, and it wasn't fun sometimes, but I was just, I don't have time. And literally it takes you 30 seconds to go to YouTube or Spotify or wherever you listen to your music and type in the name of the concerto. So what I would say is trick yourself into finding more recordings. Let's say you have a commute on a bus or a train, and your teacher said, next week we are going to start, I keep referencing the same concertos, so I want to pick a different one. Let's say next week you're going to start Schumann Concerto. When you're on the bus and you're just sitting there scrolling through that feed, well, after you check out Cello Doll's posts. Just kidding. You know, instead of just going around on your phone or whatever, go to Spotify, type in Schumann Concerto. Or let's say you're waiting in line at the grocery store, or, you know, times when you're normally not doing anything, just look up multiple recordings and bookmark them. There, you're done. You know, you can really trick yourself into doing things that you don't think you have time for. So I would say listen to at least 3 different recordings, and then on top of it, with every recording, find one thing you like, and this is the harder part, one thing you don't like about the recording. And it doesn't have to do anything with quality or anything technical, but you can say like, man, I really think this part is more tragic, and I really wish they laid into the instrument more, or something. So really, and that's going to really test your ear, and it's really going to force you to pay attention. Find something you like, find something you don't like, and ask yourself why. Excuse me, what is going on? And if you do that, you are also slowly building your own interpretation by finding something you like and something you don't like. And even Cello Doll's going to challenge you for a third thing. think of something you would add or take away. Now that doesn't necessarily mean you like it or don't like it, but what did you wish there was more of, or what did you wish there might have been a little less of, or you could think of it as something you would have done differently, you know, just kind of tricking yourself into forming your own interpretation. And in any concerto, you need to follow the notes, you gotta follow the rhythm, and if you start with that, you will do justice for the piece. I'm very hesitant to say tempo because tempo things have fluctuated throughout the years. You know, some composers like Shostakovich are known for making markings too fast. But then again, you know, that begs the question, then are you following Shostakovich's intentions? Or is it really physically impossible? You know, sometimes it is physically impossible. Or did he want it to sound like it's physically impossible? So you can really go down a rabbit hole with this, but the core thing to take away is listen to at least 3 recordings and question yourself on what you like, dislike, or would do differently for your recordings. Hello to you all who recently joined. Hello, we are here for Cello Tip Tuesday live stream. We're on your resource and we get to talk about music and practicing strategies. So I'm challenging you all on YouTube. I want some questions from YouTube too. So let me also peek around in Instagram. Oh, very interesting. Somebody mentioned that they, somebody mentioned that I think they played along to their teacher's recording. Yeah, someone said they played along with a teacher's recording. And I think that's really funny. Yeah, you can learn a lot by listening to your teacher's recordings. And you know, playing along with a recording can be great because, you know, sometimes, sorry, I got a question from YouTube and I got excited and distracted. Sometimes you'll hear something in a piece and you'll go, I don't know if I like it or not. Or I don't know if it's going to be physically awkward or not. So try playing along with it and see how it feels and sounds. You know, often when I play along with recordings, I have only one ear in. You know, if you're playing like this, I usually have this ear in, because then you can hear yourself. You know, if the recording's too loud in both ears, you can miss some things. So I'm gonna hop on to YouTube. How much do you think knowing another instrument makes learning a new instrument easier? Oh, damn. That's a... Shelly, I'm not gonna leave you. It's just a question from YouTube, okay? So knowing another instrument, how much does it make learning a new instrument easier? Well, I think it depends on if your second instrument is in the same family, meaning from a string instrument to a string instrument, from a woodwind to a woodwind. I think that definitely helps. You know, I'm not saying I can pick up a violin and play it. I can, but sorry, I just want to check in on YouTube. Okay, we're fine. Okay, great. So as I was saying, if I wanted to learn violin, you know, the bow hold is different, but there are a lot of similarities and parallels between a cello bow hand shape and a violin bow hand shape. So that would benefit me. That would play in my favor. But if I wanted to go learn the clarinet, well, that's a very different story. But I will say, learning any instrument, you get ear training, you know, you already start learning the concept of intonation, music note reading, and you have a lot of valuable tools that are universal as a musician. So we said note reading, sense of rhythm, sense of tempo, intonation, in a sense, tone quality, right? And for example, playing in orchestras for so many years, especially in college, even though I wasn't a clarinet player, I could hear someone and go, wow, that's a really beautiful tone on that clarinetist has a beautiful tone. So you do pick up these skills that can help in other instruments. Another thing is very small motor skills and hand coordination. Like even, I keep saying clarinet for some reason because in another life, oh my gosh, guys, okay, so I'm going to tell you guys a really quick secret. It's not really a secret, but in a next life, I want to be a professional bass clarinet player. I'm so serious. If you guys think I'm wacky, go look up some modern solo bass clarinet music, and the bass clarinet is so beautiful. Its tone is gorgeous. So anyways, now that I've let out a cello doll secret in my next life, I want to play bass clarinet. You know, the way clarinet works, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. I don't know which way it goes. Ooh! Don't at me, as the cool social media people say, don't at me if I get this wrong. But you have to play certain fingerings for certain notes. See, I'm doing it both ways, so I can't be wrong. And that requires coordination. Actually, in a way, I'm guaranteed to be wrong and right, so it's fine. But that requires coordination. Cello playing requires coordination. So I definitely think having musical knowledge really, really helps you, because in a sense, if you are a sensitive musician, most of your initial learning curves are going to be the physicality of the instrument. How do you sit? What is your posture? Also, being a cello player, we have to sit on the edge of our chair. You see how much room is behind me. You have to sit on the edge of your chair. You have to feel tall in your spine, and you have to be centered in your body. I mean, you don't want to be rigid, so you have to have some flexibility, and you have to be soft in your back. That applies for most instruments. You know, I mean, excuse me, even like a vocalist even, you know, their instrument is internal, but they have to stand, you know, shoulders back, and they have to be open. And even that is going to help you with the physicality of learning another instrument. There's a comment from Frank on YouTube. Carolyn dropping some super valuable gems in this video. Thank you, Frank. I try. I mean, not to get all like schmoozy on you guys, but oh, good. We have some more questions. Okay, I see a question on Instagram. Thank you. I'm going to get to that really, really quickly. But honestly, you know, one part of Cello Doll is I really want to be kind of a practice room buddy that is rooting for you. Seriously. Because some of those practice room days are long and hard, and not everyone has a practice room buddy. It's kind of like going to the gym. You know how if some people have a workout buddy, they're going to have a much more positive experience working out. Personally, when I work out, I don't want anyone to see me in case I do something embarrassing. So I like to work out alone, but you know what I mean? Like, just having someone there to offer you some advice and practice room encouragement. You know, that's something that kind of came out of Cello Doll that I wasn't expecting. And I realized, no, like, people need practice room buddies. So thank you, Frank, for that comment. That really means a lot to me. Oh, someone also mentioned on YouTube, something more beautiful than a cello. I don't know about that. Well, I'm saying the Carolyn cello doll in this life is in love with cello. Maybe in the next life, she'll be in love with bass clarinet. So we have an Instagram question. In general, what would be your advice on practice time breaks and rest days? Excellent question. I need some water. It's been 44 minutes and I haven't had water. This is the content you guys dreamed of, right? Cheers, my dolls. Oh no, you're not supposed to cheers with water. Don't cheers me. It's supposedly bad luck. I'm so sorry. So advice on practice, rest time, breaks. I got you. Okay. So I think this whole question could be its own YouTube vlog, which I think would be an incredible vlog, how to schedule practicing time and breaks and things like that. So I will say the answers will depend on where you are in learning the cello and what your goals are for learning the cello. So by the time I started college when I was 18, I had been playing the cello for 10 years and I was practicing 5 to 6 hours a day in undergrad, 4 to 5 hours a day in masters, and then 3 to 4 hours a day in my diploma. And now that I'm a professional, I'm practicing 2 hours a day, and then I might do some other playing, like I might do some recordings on top of that, but I set aside 2 hours of my day for cello as a professional musician. And that doesn't include like gigging and performances and rehearsals. That's outside of all of that. Excuse me. Now, I will say, you know, in college, I wanted to be a professional cello player. So I wanted to put in a professional workload. And if you are just starting off, and let's say, you know, you pick up the cello in your 30s or whatever, or you pick it up when you start college because you want a hobby outside of your studying and you don't want to be a professional, you just want to enjoy it. I mean, practice that long if you want to, but you don't have to. Again, it's a different goal, right? I mean, for example, I'm very fascinated by true crime, criminal psychology. I listen to a lot of podcasts about that, but I don't study it. You know what I mean? I don't like read. I don't spend hours reading books on it. It's just something I listen to in my free time. So that's an example. And there's no shame in not practicing like a professional. I hope that makes sense. And also, you aren't going to have the physical stamina yet. When I first started as a little kid, I practiced 30 minutes a day. So I was 8. And then, you know, within a year, it turned into an hour a day, then 2 hours a day. And when I was in high school, I was trying to do 3 hours a day while going to public school, which was really challenging. So again, you know, the best advice I can give you for a practice plan is to make it a habit. Make it a habit. You know, have a certain amount, have a goal for yourself and try it out. And if you can't, let's say you say, I want to play my cello 5 days a week for 30 minutes, and you don't reach that goal, you have to ask yourself why, and you can't be too hard on yourself. You have to say, well, what happened? Did something come up at work and I had to stay at the office late. Like, what happened? Why couldn't I meet my goal? You assess it and reevaluate it rather than, oh, I didn't practice. Ugh. Like, that's not going to be helpful. That's really not going to be helpful. And especially as someone who did that a lot in conservatories, you know, oftentimes I was so exhausted and I would push myself to practice that extra hour and I didn't really get anything done. It wasn't productive, but I just wanted to do it. And I probably shouldn't have, because also, again, the physicality of playing, you have to take really good care of yourself. So I will say, who submitted this question, I believe it was a Noah on Instagram. If you could tell me where you are in your cello learning journey, I would love to offer a specific plan, because I know I'm speaking in a lot of general terms, but I would recommend for people taking lessons, I will say casual, non-professional cello lessons. I would say 4 to 5 days a week, I think would be a good goal to start. And again, I think making it a habit is more important than tallying up hours. You know, I think making time to sit with your cello on certain days of the week, I think is a better habit than focusing on the hours. So I'll give you an example. Obviously, if you practice 10 minutes a day, you know, by the time you get the cello out, you know, that's going to take a couple minutes. You get tuned, that's going to take another minute. You know, you can't do it in like 10, 20 minutes a day. I really think you should start in 30-minute chunks if you are a brand new beginner, and start with that. 30 minutes a day, 4 to 5 days a week, and see how that goes. And, you know, rest days are very important as a professional. And it was so funny. I went to school in Boston for a while, and there was a cellist there named Rhonda Ryder. And I read somebody, I think she was interviewed for an article or wrote an article. And she wrote something along the lines of, one day a week, I practice being human, or one day a week, I make the time to be human. And she doesn't touch her cello one day a week. And I thought that really resonated with me. And after I read that article, I started doing the same. And I've been doing that for so many years, where one day a week, I don't touch the instrument and I do something else, whether I'm relaxing or I finally get to watch a little bit of Netflix or something. You know, I take one day a week for Cello Doll, for Carolyn gets a day a week. And that's not to say cello is a very crucial part of my life, obviously. But, you know, it's not the only part of my life. Although sometimes you feel that way. But there was another question I wanted to address. Is it okay to split cello practice during the day? Yes. And thank you so much for submitting that. That's a very important point, and also goes back to Noah's question, practicing breaks. You know, practicing breaks are great for your physicality, and they are super important for if you have a really busy schedule. I mean, that's what I did in college all the time. You have to. I can't sit down and practice 5 hours straight. If you do that, you're going to get injured. I'm sorry. You are. And think about athletes. You know, a lot of people don't realize musicians are very much like athletes. We really are. And we, you know, I mean, you know, sports teams rehearse. They, sport teams don't rehearse, they practice. I'm sorry. Sports teams practice. And you bet they take breaks and they stretch and they regroup and they talk about what they, just like that play they did, they talk about it. You know, they have to take breaks because it's a lot of intense work on the body, and the same thing for cello. So I would recommend splitting up your practice time into 30-minute segments. Once you get past 30 minutes, if you get, let's say you've been playing cello for, you know, by the time you get to an intermediate level status, like advanced intermediate, you usually have enough stamina to do 1 hour segments. And one thing I do, this is my little trick, especially when I was in conservatories, I would do my practicing around mealtime. So I would practice, I mean, granted, by the time I was in a conservatory, I could practice in 2 to 3 hour increments. But again, conservatory, professional level training, years upon years upon years of building up stamina. And, you know, I would take 5-minute breaks here and there. You know, I wouldn't just go super hard at practicing for 2 to 3 hours. You know, you take like little breaks here and there to rest your hands. So I would do my practicing around mealtime. Like I would practice for a couple hours in the morning, and then I would go get lunch. And then, you know, by the time, especially in school, you go to a dining hall, you sit down, you see some friends, you eat. That's like a good hour. And then I would go back and practice. So in a way, I would eat around my practicing time. But again, you can do that a lot when you, let's say for those of you who have a full-time job, you know, especially if you can work remotely from home. I know a lot of people are doing that right now, and that makes practicing easier. You know, some people are really tired after work, but I know some people are, they see cello as like their meditation and their happy place and a chance to relax. So some people will practice between work and dinner time or things like that. And you also have to ask yourself this: when will I be motivated to practice during the day? Do you get super tired around 4 o'clock every day? Things like that. Because if you kind of know physically and psychologically how you're feeling throughout the day, you will practice better. For example, unless I absolutely had to, I would be done practicing by 9 o'clock. I still do that today. I do not practice after 9 o'clock because I get tired and I really want to wind down for bed. So if I procrastinate throughout my day and I sit down with my cello at 8:30, I'm not going to do well. I know I'm not going to do well because I'm going to be tired. I really like to decompress, you know, after I have dinner, things like that, do computer work. So I know that works for me. So think about, when do you have the most energy? When are you focused? And practice then. Right? And for those of you who also have, I just want to make sure I'm not missing any questions on Instagram. I don't see any right now. Okay. So yeah, also especially for those of you who live stream, and maybe I just shouldn't do that. I don't know. I gotta check out my live stream again. Over here, there we go. Someone wrote on YouTube, I do it in reverse. I usually touch my guitar once a week. Oh, that's funny. But that's okay. That's a habit. You know, at least you're starting with, you are practicing 1 day a week. That's a habit. That's something you do regularly. And, you know, maybe try making it 2 days a week. See what happens. You know, there's also something to be said for bumping up stuff gradually. You know, that method works really well for people. I just think having a regular planned time of day is very important to start. Not so much, I used to think hours were super important, but as I work more and teach more, I really think having the habit of certain, someone wrote, I have chosen to practice my creativity. Sure, it's a very empowering choice to decide when to practice. Going back to the Graham, how does listening to non-classical music affect your approach when you return to cello? That's a great question. Non-classical music. You know, sometimes I'll hear a really cool sound or the timbre of how a vocalist sings, like the colors in their voice. And I think, you know, how can I do that on cello? And I honestly think it really affects me more so when I compose for cello. I often think in terms of, yes, my favorite classical styles, but also I think about alternative music, heavy metal music, rock music, genres I really like, that how can I compose that atmosphere, that character on the cello? So I actually think I feel the influence a lot when I compose, but also, and this is a huge reason why I started Cello Doll, is there's a lot of parallels between classical composers and different genres, like Stravinsky and dubstep. There's a lot of parallels there. You might not, some of you know what I'm talking about. Stravinsky and dubstep. My idea. You can't have it. I'm going to do that someday. My idea. Cello Doll idea. You can't have it. I need to be careful what I say on these streams because I can't edit them. No, but seriously, there are a lot of parallels in different genres with certain classical composers. Don't ask me where I was going with that. I had something very profound to say. No, I don't remember. Sad. I'm sorry. I can't remember what I was going to say. It was something to do with different genres. In any case, it's going to be inspiring. It's going to be inspiring when you're in your practice room. And, once you get to the technical point where you can associate certain techniques with certain atmospheres, like this is the example I use all the time with when I talk to students, is you guys like horror movies? There's a musical signature in a lot of horror movies, and as you get more advanced, you're going to hear these techniques and you're going to associate these techniques with characters. And you might hear, let's say you hear a rock song or not rock song, like a heavy metal song, and you hear the vocalist has these really punchy vocals, but there's some resonance after the fact, like a little bit of resonance, but it's really punchy. You might think, ooh, I want more resonance in my Shostakovich concerto. I want to try to get that resonance with that punchiness. So you can find parallels. But here's an example of a technique a lot of you will know, and it's associated with a character and a mood and a feeling. Horror movies. I'm going to paint this scene for you, and this will have to be the last thing I do, because it's been an hour, my dolls. So this is what I will leave you with. You're watching a movie, and the main character is in a creepy, abandoned house. Not supposed to be in that house, but they're there, and it's in the middle of the night, and they're walking around slowly, and they see a dark shadow around the corner of a hallway. Now, what do they do in a horror movie? They never turn around, go somewhere else. They go down the hallway. So the music drops out, and you hear the character breathing. They're walking down the hallway, and as they get closer to that dark corner, strings are gonna come in, and they usually do something like they do tremolos. Sometimes they're down low too. And that's tension. You're like, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? So again, this is an example of a non-classical piece of music kind of inspiring you to associate a technique with a character. Oh, someone wrote, really quick question. Do you write anything in Midi or do you always use the cello? If you use Midi, advice on getting them more convincing. So this is a composing question. For myself, I usually start with the cello, just because that's my comfort zone and my primary instrument. But sometimes I also, if I'm going to write like a string quartet, I'll just start in Sibelius. And I know enough about string instruments where I can listen beyond the Midi and hear, I can predict more of what a true string sound will be like. I'd be interested in knowing, this is a question from YouTube. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Frank. Frank just contributed some advice in the chat. Midis, I'd be interested if you use only a, if you only use a program like Sibelius, which is music writing software, Sibelius, or, oh, what's the other big one? Finale, Sibelius or Finale. Or do you use a DAW, a digital audio workstation like Logic or Ableton? And Frank wrote in the chat, using real musicians and recording real musicians. Of course, that's going to give you the most authentic sound. And I understand not everyone can afford to hire real musicians, but let's say you want to use beats, or you just want to use beats or sound effects. You can compose just with sound effects. You know, check out some of those DAWs I mentioned, Ableton Live, Logic Pro, even GarageBand. A lot of people start in GarageBand, and you know, do some research. Some people have written modifications and sister programs that you can import into these programs. People have made sound libraries that you can import into GarageBand or Ableton Live or Logic, and just kind of do some research, and you should be able to find some sound libraries that don't break the bank. But of course, using real musicians and hiring real musicians will give you a very authentic sound, especially if they're very good at remote recording, like what Shelly and I, oh, cool. This person uses Reaper. I used Reaper. That was my second DAW I used. Okay, I would recommend doing some research. Really do some deep digging for people who have made sound libraries for Reaper. Excuse me, that are Reaper compatible. Excuse me. Yeah. If you're very interested, I'm going to give a plug. If you're very interested in composing with sound effects, there's this group on Bandcamp called Free to Use Sounds. They're very good. They're professional sound engineers, and they record like nighttime wind through abandoned house. They record some nature sounds, city sounds. They record some really cool, high quality atmospheric audio. And I believe it's $50 or $70. Don't quote me on that. It's been a minute. And you get lifetime access to all of their recordings for a one-time fee. At least that's what I got. It might have been a special promo at the time, but if you are really into soundscapes and atmosphere, look up free to use sounds on Bandcamp. Yes. All right, my dolls. You all have been amazing. Thank you so much. This was an excellent live stream. You all had some really great questions about practice time management. That's a very good theme for today. And I think it's great because if you are thinking about your practice time, you want to be dedicated to practicing if you want to think of time for it and figure out a schedule for it. So that shows that you value it, and that's amazing. All right, so I will see you dolls next month and on the socials. And yeah, for those of you who might be new here, we do Cello Tit Tuesday live streams on the last Tuesday of every month. And for your social media entertainment, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and now I just got on TikTok. What? It only took me quite a bit, but I'm now on TikTok. And if you want VIP content that you can't find anywhere else, MP3s, discounted lessons, things like that, check out my Patreon, and you can support Shelly and I in our musical adventures and get some VIP content. All right, we'll see you next month. Happy practicing, my dolls. Bye-bye.